What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're all doing well today. Going to be bringing you another big hand review. Today we're going to be talking about the Qvist Variant PE2. What I'll be doing for you today is going through the specs on this particular knife. I will do some size comparisons for reference, both in size and carry profile. And then I will go through thoughts and impressions and alternative recommendations. First up, let's go ahead and jump into the specs themselves. The Variant PE2 has a 2.98 inch 14C28N blade, 3.99 inch micarta handles for an overall length of 6.97 inches, and claimed weight on the Variant PE2 is 3 ounces. Let's go ahead and weigh in the knife and see where it's coming in at. Coming in exactly at the 3 ounce weight that is claimed. Always love to see that. My understanding is that this knife is manufactured by QSP, and I like a lot of the QSP knives. Let's go ahead and do the size references. First up, we're going to go ahead and bring out the Demco AD20.5. This one's going to be the smaller comparison knife. As you can see here, the Variant is just smaller, and we'll bring out the Spyderco Shaman. The Shaman here is going to be a much larger knife overall. So hopefully that has helped you a little bit from a size perspective. We will also go ahead and bring out another set of comparison knives. First, we're going to bring up the Benchmade Bug Out. The Bug Out here is going to be a little bit closer in size, but still overall bigger. We'll go ahead and bring out the SIG K320 made by Hogue. You can see this is just going to be a larger overall knife. Hopefully, again, this is all helping you from a size perspective. We'll get these two out of the way, and we'll bring in a set of budget knives, and then we'll do thickness profile. First, we'll bring out the Qvist KU321. This is going to be very comparable in size. As you can see, very similar handle lengths and very close in blade length. Last but not least, we'll go ahead and bring out the Buck 110 Slim. As you can see, this is just going to be longer, but it's going to have a very similar presence to that knife. So hopefully all these size comparisons helped you from a length perspective. Let's go ahead and check out the thinness of this particular knife. First, we'll take it up against the Qvist KU321. As you can see here very clearly, much thinner than the KU321. We'll go ahead and bring the Demco back first, and you can see very similar thickness. The Demco is actually just slightly thinner overall, and we'll bring the Bug Out here as well, and you can see the Bug Out, I'd say that's about even. So hopefully that has helped you from profile perspective and thickness carry on this particular knife. Now let's go ahead and jump into thoughts and impressions about the Variant PE2, which is, I think, production edition 2. The first thing I want to get into is this big hand friendly? Let me walk you through some of the things that I looked at. So how does it fit in hand? I saw some people, and I don't know why necessarily, that had the finger in the finger choil and had the knife way out here, and in reality, in using the knife, it is not comfortable like that. I feel like this landing pad here is actually meant for the front finger, and the choil, or the cutout for the lock bar access, is really meant for the middle finger. Now, I wanted initially to kind of use this like all of my other knives and kind of have everything flush and landed, and it just was so awkward like that. I had this big gap here at the top of my hand, and it was making contact where I normally do with the sway back. I have not handled a lot of sway backs. This is my second. What I found with this one is it actually is more comfortable to nest it here and actually lock it in with the fingertips and use it this way. And actually you can, with that contoured into the palm, you can do push cuts like that. It's just a little different, and it's a little unusual at first when you're doing it, but once you get into it, you get kind of used to it. And the other thing to that is that when you do this, what ends up happening, as if I can demonstrate it for you, it does keep it perfectly placed so that the cut is going straight through. You don't have it leaning back. It's not really leaning forward. It ends up landing in a perfect position for me. And then for the detailed work, I can really move up on the knife by having my hand in this position to get out to the tip and work through those cuts. And last but not least, the draw cuts landing pad for the middle finger being this spot here right behind the sharpening choil. Perfect position. You do not have to get up high at all for the utility cuts, draw cuts, things of that nature. The next thing that I wanted to talk about are the actual micarta scales. Since I don't have the titanium variant here to go over, it's a little too slick. It has a little bit of roughing, but I wish it actually would have had just a little bit more roughing. It feels almost as slick as the micarta heel here that you see on the Shaman. And then the other one that I wanted to bring out here to talk about with the micarta is actually the Cutout Saxi. As you can see here, they look like they would be relatively similar, but the actual Saxi has a little bit more roughing going on, whereas the QSP feels just a hair more slick. Now, the knife that I've had here recently that I really like that's roughed up nicely is actually the Thug 2, and you can really see it. You see how white the knife looks? This feels like denim on a pair of jeans. This does not. This feels just, again, a little bit too slick and not quite what I was hoping for on the micarta. The fact that I can get all 4 fingers does kind of bypass that, but where it becomes an issue for me is when I go to front flip it. So when I'm holding it in hand and I'm trying to grip it with the large hands, because this is a smaller knife, I'm finding that I'm like right on the edge where it's rounded for the micarta. So I have this whole thing jumps in my hand when I flip it. And you see what I've done is I went from being here to kind of shifting here and grabbing the knife really quick so it doesn't fall out of the hand. And it doesn't matter what position I put it in. If I try to roll it, it's okay, but you see my fingers jumped back again because it's sliding on the micarta. Having said that, I feel like the primary means of deployment with this knife is the reverse flick. And the reason I say that is because it's very comfortable. The knife doesn't move. It lands naturally in a really nice position. It's giving pressure right into the palm and the forward finger so that I can hold it and control the front finger flip. The detent on here is a little light, which generally I have found works okay for the reverse flick because you're really kind of getting it nestled in there and giving it a quick thrust out. But if you try to like gingerly do it, it still has just enough detent to kick out. Now, when you go to do the forward flick, it really doesn't have enough detent. I'm finding I'm having to just, you see, I'm sliding off the bar trying to put light pressure. But if you take your thumb and you put it in and dig the meat in and then release some of the pressure, like you're not squeezing the knife hard, but you got your meat down in there, it will, well, I missed there, it will deploy. But it doesn't feel very natural because I'm having to go around this part here. So even for the thumb flick, it doesn't feel very natural. And then for the front flip, I'd probably say this is not the worst front flip experience that I've encountered, but it is by far not the best, or far from the best, I guess I should say. It just feels like it was brought to his attention. It would be cool if he made a front flipper here. It looked like it could do it. He did it, and it could. And I feel like it was added on to that for the people that requested it, but I don't feel like functionally it is the best front flipper. The detent feels a little light. You do have to kind of push into it, and you have to make sure that you're right in this spot here for that front flip, because if you try to come down, it's not going to really work, and if you try to go up, you're going to miss, and it's actually a little sharp on the top there. So not really, in my mind, having that dedication to the front flipper. I feel like he kind of added it because he could, and yes, it does work, and it works okay. But again, the knife with this micarta being slick just moves around in hand. You see where I'm starting out when I go to do this, and the knife just wants to jump up because I can't really grip it. If I grip it too tight, what ends up happening is I'm pretty much just kicking it completely reverse now. Like I've had to reverse the knife to kind of do that, and I feel like the front flippers, you really want to kind of be about here to get them in position when you front flip them. So not the best front flipping experience. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is the cutout. It is, again, big hand perspective. If you have medium hands, you're probably not going to agree with anything that I'm saying and I fully understand and appreciate that. But for me, the cutout is a little too small for my fingers. It is a little uncomfortable because it's so rounded that I'm having to kind of dig in with the finger to get it in there to actuate it. I feel like if they would have actually left this a little bit sharper and not round it so much so that it had some bite, and one of the knives that I'm going to bring out here to show you what I'm talking about, like I do not have to dig my finger in here at all to get that. And I know that was a very slow demonstration, but I could almost not even put my finger in the hole, and I'm getting enough bite because of the sharpness underneath of the actual flipper tab. And this is, I looked at this one because it's relatively the same size. You actually get more opening on the Variant PE2 than you do on the Demco, but because the Demco left it sharper underneath, it's actually easier to catch just a little bit of the meat on the finger for that reverse flick, which I really do appreciate. Same thing with the lock bar. You get nice access, it's not down. I'm sure the reason that it's so rounded is so that you don't feel it when you put your finger over top of it, but I think you could afford to pull that back a little bit and have it be a little bit sharp, because what I'm finding is when I go to put pressure to release the lock bar, it's actually digging into the finger and it is uncomfortable. Again, large hand having that issue. Even if you wanted to put the jimping a la giant mouse style, right? Let's say you wanted it to be jumped here and flat and then contoured a little bit on the edges, you would actually be able to actuate it by putting the thumb directly on, comfortably, mind you, directly on the lock bar and push it over that way. Even doing that here, because of the fact that it's so rounded, it borderline is feeling now sharp. To me, it's just uncomfortable to actuate. The other thing too is it is not a reversible deep carry pocket clip. I would have liked to have seen that. I was a little worried about this pocket clip, but it actually worked just perfectly fine. I tried it in my shorts, and I tried it in my work dress pants, and I tried it in my jeans. And the billing on here is just good enough to catch, and it has just enough clearance, and it is recessed enough, just enough to go all the way in without any issues. So that is good. Again, I feel like the finish and the build quality are really good. I think it could have benefited from a slightly stronger detent, a little bit less rounding on the lock bar and around the thumb hole for it to work. Now, if you're just happy with the fact that you can reverse flick this and that is how you're going to primarily open it, this thing is going to work for you all day long with no issues. It will catch and it will deploy. Having said that, not the best deployment knife that I have found as far as that thumb hole or that front flipper. I feel like there's a little bit too much rounding out, and it could benefit from it being a little bit more sharp around those two parts. And honestly, I would just not even round this out at all. What I would do is just go in and add just a little high level of jimping. I'm going to bring that giant mouse out here again so you can see what I'm talking about. So just that little tiny bit of jimping on there on the top of that and leaving it flat, I think would actually work better personally. Now, this is just my opinion, and I am, again, doing this review from a larger hand perspective because of the fact that I'm finding these knives, they really are very cool and very interesting looking, and I want to be able to carry them, but I'm finding with the larger hands, it's just not very comfortable for me. The blade itself has a fantastic edge. It is nice, thin, slicey geometry. It went through the paper without any defects in the edges. It went through the cardboard that I tested on very nicely. And again, holding that up like this and actually going through, I was really surprised. It's a little awkward because I'm used to pushing through the cardboard like this, but because it has such good geometry, holding it nestled like this in hand, which is a little bit different, it went through the material really, really good, and I do appreciate that. The Micarta does feel and look like it's a nice quality. Again, I just wish it was a little bit more textured, a little bit more rough on there. And I do actually like the fact that it's contoured around the edges because I feel absolutely no hot spot in hand whatsoever. Even this, I don't really feel that. I feel like it's perfectly angled to where it's comfortable in hand. It carries really good. It's really nice and lightweight, and I do appreciate that very, very much. It has good lockup. Again, the detent a little light. I would have liked that to have been just a little bit stronger from the factory. I know that you can tune it. I'm just saying how it came from the factory. I would have liked that. And again, that lock bar, just uncomfortable to actuate. As you can see, it's leaving an indentation because I'm having to push so hard to keep my finger from slipping over. And, you know, I don't want any additional lock bar access. I think leaving it flat and the jimping would have been the way to go, because then you could have just actuated it just like that. Even if you like coming in from the side, you would, you know, you have so much space that you would have been able to do that. I really do like the captive pivot, and I like how he did the little bullet holes, or the 6-shooter, or whatever it is that he was going for there. I think it looks really good. Hardware looks good. I would have liked the stonewash to have matched on all the hardware, including the pocket clip. I really think that QSP does a phenomenal job with their stonewash, and it looks really good. All the stuff I say could drive the price up. I'm saying all of that, the complaints and the good, with the caveat that this is a $60 knife. This is super budget friendly, and for the money, the quality of the build and the quality of the materials is really well done. It's not perfect, but it is very well done, and I do like it a lot. Now, a couple of alternative recommendations I'm going to make, and I'm not going to worry about price point really. Something that it reminds me of is actually going to be the Banter. Relatively close in size, cutting edge, and handle performance, a little bit of ergos. And again, this one here has that style of lock bar that I like, where you can really get on it without it being uncomfortable. Even coming in from the side, it's not uncomfortable. It's not leaving any marks. It's flat enough to have enough contact point to relieve some of the pressure that's going into that smaller contact patch that you're finding on the Variant 2. The other knife that I'm going to recommend is actually going to be the Spyderco Sage 5. I think this is another knife that compares really well, super competitive. It is a USA made alternative option that I wanted to throw out there that's around the same size. So this is, again, from a size perspective. And another knife that has come out here recently. Again, these are all like $100 knives, and you're looking at a $60 knife. But if you're at that $60 price point, I think that you can probably afford to spend around $100. But that is going to be the Kaiser Drop Bear. So this is going to be one that has very neutral ergos. It's going to have a sub 3-inch blade. It's going to have the crossbar lock instead. It's going to have a little bit more weight if you don't like a lighter knife. This is a little bit more weight for your primary sub 3-inch carry, or your companion carry if you like having something under 3 inches like I do as a companion carry. And 154 cm, which is a fantastic blade steel. Ultimately, I do recommend this knife, again, because it is $60. And if you acknowledge and recognize the things that I complained about, which again are going to be the sharpness on the thumb hole and the sharpness on the lock bar, those are the main two pain points that I have. And even saying that, they're not awful, right? They're okay. I can deal with them. And again, that front flipper, I take that to be as a bonus. I know I talked about the fact that it wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. You just have to, again, land it here, and if you have smaller hands, you probably are going to be able to more easily control the knife in hand. For me, again, with the larger hands, I don't have much that I can grip onto when I'm trying to flip it, and every time my hand slips on the backside when I'm trying to actuate it. So every time I'm losing the knife in hand a little bit. So I think it was added because it could be added, and again, I think it's a bonus. But for me, my recommendation on this knife is, if you're going to be happy with the fact that you're just going to reverse flick to open this knife, and some people like that. Let me know what you think. Do you have this knife down in the comments? What are your thoughts on my review of this knife? I think it's good. It's not great. It's not awesome. It's not outstanding. You don't need to go right out and buy this particular knife. My hope is that if enough of this type of feedback comes through, that he makes those small changes, and I think this is going to be a solid knife for $60. And I think even the titanium handled variants that are out there are under $100, if I remember correctly. Either way, I hope that this video has helped you. I hope that you enjoyed it. Again, this is from a larger hand perspective, because I feel like a lot of reviewers out there have those medium-sized hands. And for me, this is, you know, this is the reality. This is the struggle that I deal with when I look at these knives that other reviewers are doing with the smaller than my size hands, and then I get them and I'm kind of like, damn it. So I hope this is helping you either way, because if it's a medium-sized knife, you're probably not going to encounter the problems that I do. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, leave a like. It does help me and I appreciate the support. If you're enjoying the videos, consider subscribing. Totally up to you if you want to do that, but I do appreciate the support, and thanks to all of you out there that are already subscribed. I hope all of you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.